It's Ken Colwood from ClickFix.io, coming to you again with another Freebie Friday, and this time we're going to do a new shortcode reveal. And this shortcode is called the Tooltip Shortcode. And as the name says, what it does is it produces a tooltip over any element that you want it to. Let's jump over to the documentation so I can run through the different parameters that you can use to style this the way that you want. So here we are in the documentation. If you search for a tool, you'll see Tooltip comes up, and this shows you a preview of the shortcode that we're going to be using. And let's just walk through this. It's very simple. It starts with tooltip, and it's the ID of the element that you want to use. You have to lay out which block it's in. You're going to give a delay in milliseconds, and that is just kind of the animation of how long it takes to appear. So it fades in. The content, so what you want it to say, whether or not you want it to follow your cursor, the placement, whether it's top, bottom, left, or right of the element, and these different pre-made themes that we've put together for you. You can try the different ones here, and whether or not it's interactive. And interactive just means that people can select the text that's inside. Obviously, if it is following the cursor, it's going to make it very hard to be interactive, so you have to kind of keep in mind that some of these options may interfere with the other ones. So with that, let's jump over to the editor and let's take a look at how this one is set up. So here we are. We're going to talk about these lines here in a little bit, but let's go ahead and look at line number 3. And this is tooltip, and it's targeting element 42, which is this button here. And we've told it that we wanted to have a 200 millisecond delay, right? So 0.2 of a second, basically. And we want it to say, please complete the form to enable this button. Right? So you can see it popping up there. We've told it that we do want it to follow the cursor. So it, as you can see, it goes around with my cursor. We said we want it on the bottom, right? So this is one of those situations where if we have it following the cursor, it's not necessarily going to pop to the bottom of the element because it's going to move around with the cursor, but it starts below where the cursor is. And we're calling it the material theme, which is our dark theme, and we are calling it interactive. But again, since it's following the cursor, it's not going to be interactive. So let's just go ahead and change the follow the cursor and publish that just to see the difference here. And now you can see that the tooltip doesn't follow the cursor, so it is stuck below the element. And when you roll off, the tooltip goes away. It comes in 200 milliseconds. And goes away in about 200 milliseconds, right? And let's go ahead and just take a look at a different, let's call it translucent. And let's see what that looks like. So instead of material, let's call it translucent. And let's actually go ahead and change the message here. Oops. It looks like your missing required field. Missing required. And then let's also go ahead and change this to the top, for example. And let's see what that looks like. All right. Published. All right, jump in here, and there you go, just like that. So now translucent, you can see it's a little bit, you can see a little bit of the line through it, and it has the new message that we wanted. And I'll go ahead and show you the other two themes, and then let's jump into a little bit of the use case. Why would you use something like this? So light and light border are the two that we're going to look at now. So let's look at light instead of translucent. I personally like our material theme the best. Go ahead and publish that. All right. There you go. This is what light looks like. And then light border. All right. So, and you can see that it is interactive. We can actually select this text if we want to. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and change it back to material and bottom, which is how I like it. And we're going to say interactive no, because I don't need them to actually select any text or anything like that. All right. So why would you use a tooltip? Well, as you can probably imagine, there are plenty of uses for tooltips. It can explain a little bit of what a particular button does. If you have a feature list, or if you want to add a little bit more impact to your bullets, maybe you'd have a tooltip on these bullets that would give a little bit more detail, or maybe you would have something, if you have any kind of a notes field or something like that, and you want to give a little bit more context around it without having to take up extra real estate for the people who understand already what they should be putting into that field. You could use tooltips for any number of things. But in this particular case, what we've done is we've set it up so that this button, this is a dummy button, this is not a submit button, just a regular button. It doesn't link to anything, right? So if they click it, nothing happens. And we set it up so that if they hover over it and they're wondering why it's grayed out, or let's say, for example, they go ahead and put in some of their information, but they forget to put in the information that we actually need. Right. So, for example, let's imagine that beyond the fact that the email field is required and it would submit and it would just come back with an error, let's imagine that we want to avoid any kind of user problems where they're clicking on buttons and it submits the form, but there's an error. And even if they come back and they see that there's an error, it's just a bad user experience for them to have thought that they were done, click the button to submit, and it doesn't work, right? So we've set this up so that even if somebody puts in information, and obviously we're not validating this information, but if somebody puts in all the information but they've missed one of the fields that we've determined are important, and in this case I've said that the email field has to be filled out before this button is swapped, is enabled basically, it just won't, right? And then they'll have a tooltip explaining exactly why they're not able to do anything, right? So, but as soon as I fill out the button, or as soon as I fill out the email, I should say, sorry, you can see that it does in fact now come to the submit button, and we would be able to actually submit this form. Now, obviously this would need to be a valid credit card number before the form would actually submit properly, right? And so for a use case like this is a very simple use case, but it's very easy for you to go ahead and set something up like that here in the custom code, and that's what these lines 5 through 10 are, right? Basically what it says hide element 38, and in this case element 38 is the actual submit button, right? And I'll show you that in the editor in a second. And it says, okay, if the field email, wait until field email is not blank, and payment number, the credit card number, is not blank, and the payment code, the CVC code, is not blank. If all three of these conditions are met, then it says to show the submit button and hide the dummy button, right? And it's just that simple. Now you have something set up where you're able to keep people that have not filled out all of the pertinent information from clicking on the submit button, because there is no submit button for them to click. And you've also used a tooltip to be able to explain to them exactly what it is that's going on. And in this case, it is simply the fact that they haven't filled out all of the required fields. All right, so you can see here in the editor, all we did is we just copied the style of this submit button, turned it into a normal button, and just changed the color to gray, which is kind of the universally accepted color for something being disabled. So that's it. That's just one use case that you can have for Tooltip. You'll see very soon in the new ClickFix interface that we're going to be using tooltips to give a little bit more context for exactly what's going on the buttons, and any other number of ways that you can use tooltips just in general that you've seen on other websites. We built this shortcode because we had a need for it internally to be able to give some more context without necessarily taking up screen real estate for those people who didn't need a further explanation. So we decided to go ahead and make it part of our free shortcode package. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to drop them below or send me a DM on Facebook, or go ahead and respond directly to the Facebook post that this video is on, and we'll do our best to get you sorted. And if you're interested in finding out exactly what ClickFix can do for you and your Ontraport account, you can visit clickfix.io. You can check out our pricing here on the pricing page, or you can go ahead and scroll down to Consultant Expert and schedule a call with one of our team members to talk a little bit about your particular situation and figure out exactly if and how ClickFix can help you get the most out of your Ontraport account.